Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens. Today's episode, Writing My Novel, Progress Report number 14. My name is Glenn Gers, and I am the Chief Operating Everything at Writing for Screens, a YouTube channel devised to try to give you some skills, tools, tips, techniques, insights that I gathered during a 25-year career writing for TV and movies. On my way out of the business, I am trying to leave behind some of the things that it took me a long time to figure out for myself, in the off chance that it will be helpful to those of you who are coming after and trying to figure stuff out for yourselves. There is no system, there is no plan, there is no formula. All I can do is give you some things that I figured out, and you can figure out if they work for you, because every artist must find their own path. Every artist has to figure out what kind of work they want to do, what kind of work they can do, what kind of work the businesses want you to do, and then try and figure out how you're going to do your stuff your way in this world. Everyone has to figure that out for themselves, and all I can do is give you some things to think about. Here on my channel, this is a little screen capture of the main page, and if you look down at the bottom, you will see some playlists. These playlists, the first 3 of them, have nice, bright, colorful thumbnails which say some big word, and that word tries to give you an idea of what that 10-minute video is about. These 3 playlists have 50 10-minute videos, very small, very simple. Genre, flashbacks, dialogue, character, anything that I think is helpful. I tried to figure out the most useful, simple way to present it to you so that you could try it out for yourself and see if it works. These first 3 playlists are called Screenwriting Essentials, Screenwriting Tools, Skills, and Craft, and The Process, Being a Writer. Like I said, 10-minute videos, 50 of them. Then you get all these live streams which ramble on forever. But I come to you once a week for 1 hour a day on every Wednesday, if I can make it, at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I talk about a different topic each time. So that's where we are now. So let's get into it. Today I'm talking about, not about screenwriting, talking about the fact that now that I have retired, I am trying to write a novel. And as I go through that process, sometimes I am sharing the things I had to figure out for myself, again, in case they're useful for you. Let me do a couple of quick hellos. Hello, Doug, and Sonia, and Alex, and Donna, and Michael. Hello, Jean, from the ward number 6, and Willie, and Adam, doing some outlining tonight. And you, yes, I'm talking about outlining, so that should be useful. Sorry, I may have to sneeze during this. Okay, let's talk. First of all, I want to do a brief mention of a novelist who I truly just loved reading his novels. I read about 8 of them, I think. He wrote a lot. He wrote 18 novels. And a lot of other works. His name was Paul Auster, A-U-S-T-E-R. Let's see if I can show you here. Paul Auster. There we go. Look at that. Moon Palace. This is one of his books that I really, if I was going to recommend one, this one's fantastic. Very all over the place, not what you'd call a brilliantly structured piece, but a hell of a story. Paul Auster tended to write books that were both intellectual adventures, like following all sorts of weird ideas, at the same time, just really great storytelling, just really great, the characters living these lives and dealing with all sorts of things. It's just fabulous stuff. I really love them. I thought I would say he died yesterday at age 77. He also made films. He directed a couple of movies. He wrote a movie called Smoke, which was directed by a guy named Wayne Wang. It's a terrific little indie film from I believe the mid 80s. It has a hell of a cast, all sorts of indie-minded New York actors and characters showed up to do little bits in this very eclectic piece. And what happened was they had finished early. They finished their film like a week early, I believe, from their schedule, and they had a week left of budget and crew and everything. And so they said, let's do let's make another movie. So they made a movie called Blue in the Face, which is entirely improvised using the people they had around, all these actors and various visitors to the set, and they just had them come in and talk. So they're, quote, talking till they're blue in the face. And I'm not saying these are great. I'm saying they're fascinating. I'm saying that they are well worth checking out. So I wanted to just mention, if you get a chance, take a look at the work of Paul Auster. Many, many great novels. City of Glass is fantastic. In the Country of Last Things, Leviathan. He's really good. Okay. Hello, Alex. I'm sorry that you have the COVID flu. Okay, cool. Binge as much as you can, but drink fluids and rest more than anything else. Hello, Virella. Yeah, smoke. It's not easy to find, but it is well worth renting, I believe. Hello, Pelicans. Okay, so having talked a little bit about Mr. Auster, let's get to my novel. So here's what happened in the past. It's only been a couple weeks since my last one of these, but a lot happened, and I wanted to talk about it because I find it fascinating. Let's just remember, I've been working on this novel. I got the idea for it almost 30 years ago. 30? Yeah, 30. And I just got I worked on the outline and worked on the story over the course of those decades, but then I basically had to put it aside because I was writing for TV and movies and couldn't find the time to work on a novel. That was just too big. I could work on my own little indie films, but a novel just was too big. So finally, I have retired. I'm doing these videos, and I said, now is the time to finish that novel. I had about 100 pages of rough draft, and I had what I thought was a complete outline. And what I found is now I have finished the rough draft. It's about 300 pages of everything that was in the outline. I tried to write just the roughest version. Very often doing that would tell me, oh, I understand the idea here, but I don't understand the dramatic action. I know that this is the scene where we have to talk about these painters and this painter, doing this thing, but I didn't know why. So I had to go through, and what I discovered is my outline follows the main character, who is the narrator of the book, very well. However, this character is involved in a love triangle with two other people, a man and a woman. The two men love the same woman, and the other two characters, Billy and Charlie, are their names. I realized that they were simply functioning for Tom, the main character, and that when I thought of a scene, I thought of how that affected Tom's progress. But I didn't think about what it was like for Billy or Charlie. What were they trying to do? Where were they in their story? So what I realized I had to do was I took my outline. Let's see if I can show you a bit about what this is, what I'm talking about here. Okay, so here is, in this document, I have the notes that I have for the project plus the outline. And let me see. So here that is. And as you can see over on the side here is the outline. Here's all the notes and plans and things. Here's the outline. And the outline is broken up into all sorts of scenes, many of which I just have very brief descriptions of because I know what's going to happen and I've written a draft. As I get into it, I hit these scenes that I haven't written, and they have big, long descriptions. So I took this entire folder here, this one called Outline, and I duplicated it and I made another version, which I called, here's a different, I called Billy's outline. And then I made another duplicate and I called it Charlie's outline. So what I then did was I took, so this is now 3 copies of the same set of scenes, the outline. I went through Charlie's and Billy's outlines and I deleted any scene that they weren't in, so that this outline becomes just their experience of the story. Like if I have some chapters where Tom, the narrator, is off doing other things, I cut that out. This is just what Billy went through. Then I started to look at each scene, and I started to ask questions. Where is she coming from? What is the route? She is coming to visit her lover, who is a painter, lives in a loft, and she's a wealthy woman who works as a social worker. But she has a fancy house uptown, but she comes to stay with her painter lover because he's uncomfortable going into her rich life. So she comes to his poor life. So just questions like, why is she, what do they do when they get together? And then, where is Billy emotionally in this sequence? So I'm asking questions, and then I start to talk about to myself, why, like, what is Billy feeling here? And what I realize is Billy is at a breaking point in her love story. And so then I thought, well, why? And I thought about what it was, and I went through each scene. So Billy's outline, I went through every single scene. And for instance, here, I just did everything I could think of about Billy's part of the story. So for every scene, I re-thought about it in terms of just where Billy is. Like in this case, Charlie, the painter, goes out every night to parties with other painters to argue about painting theory. He's very interested in trying to break through to whatever's going to be the next movement of art in the 1930s. He's anticipating the 1940s and 50s. But Billy does not like this world. She does not like this art argument stuff. So I had to think about what she's doing, what happens, how this breaks down, only in terms of what Billy is doing. Every single scene, I thought about what is Billy doing, and then questions if I don't know yet. So that's what I've been doing for a couple weeks, is simply thinking about, well, where is Billy in all these events that Tom and Charlie are going to have activity in? And I came to a bunch of really important realizations about the relationships. And there were things that I had assumed, like I had made up a version of a character or made up a version of a scene 10, 15 years ago. And for some reason, I assumed that was right. Sometimes you forget to question your own instincts and think about, like, well, would she do this, or how does she feel when she does this? And what I'm shocked by, what's really important to try and convey here, is how much you can go through a story and think you know it. But if you shift your perspective, if you shift into thinking about a different character's needs, it can absolutely open up all sorts of exciting new solutions to problems. Things that I was like, oh, that seems very vague. And then when I thought about Billy's issues, I was like, oh, that's because I've been, for instance, when we meet Billy and Charlie, they are in an unhappy relationship. They truly, truly love each other, but they're about to break up. And the reasons I had were sort of, well, they're very different or blah, blah. And I thought, no, specifically, they've been in this relationship for 2 years. They were they were not well suited from day one. Why did the 2 years work, and what has happened at the end of this 2 years to make it not work? And I realized that they needed a plan that wasn't working. In other words, they hadn't just that Charlie had set these limits on their relationship. I won't go up to your rich house. You have to come down to my poor loft. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, the problem is that makes Charlie into just a jerk. he's got these high principles, but he's behaving really badly. And I thought, Billy wouldn't put up with, we won't like Billy if she puts up with him being an asshole, and he shouldn't be an asshole. And I thought, okay, my original concept of this character, Charlie, was that he was a painter who was so pure in his artistic ambition that he didn't really care about money or fame or anything else. He just cared about getting it right in his view. Like if he felt good about it, he was fine. And I realized that didn't work. That didn't make any sense at all for that. That is a place he comes to at the end of the story. But at the beginning of the story, he has to want to be rich and famous as a painter. And I thought a lot about that. And I realized because there's only, in the 1930s, there was only one really famous painter, and that was Picasso, a modern painter. The most famous, controversial, rich, or well-off painter of that time was Picasso. And I realized that Charlie wants to be Picasso, that he believes there is an American Picasso waiting to happen, that American art, which has been neglected in history up to now, Charlie believes he has a shot at becoming the American Picasso. And so therefore, what he's saying to Billy is, if you can just put up with me for time while I do my art to break through, then I will stop these stupid rules that I've got about how I won't come to your house kind of thing. And I thought, okay, that sounds good, because if he set a what I'm calling a 5-year plan, because 5-year plans were a very big thing in the 1930s, because Russia operated its government according to 5-year plans, and that phrase became very commonplace. So I've decided that Charlie has to have set at the beginning of their relationship. He said, just give me this 5-year plan. I know it's annoying that I won't come to your house, but for 5 years, let me try to accomplish my work and get going in my career. That changes everything in the story if he's a guy who has this ambition, which during the course of the story is going to both be fulfilled and destroyed. He is going to actually make a creative breakthrough, but he's not going to become the next American Picasso. And that story of Charlie's now has a defined goal. His goal is 5 years, become the next American Picasso. Before that, I didn't have a goal. He didn't have something that he could say, this is what I'm working on. He was just like, I want to do art. I want to be a great artist. But that's so vague. But a 5-year plan to become the next American Picasso, that's a specific thing, especially because he's so broke, he can't even afford paint. And so what he discovers in the first 2 years of his 5-year plan is just dealing with poverty is a full-time job. You don't have time to be an artist when you're dealing with, can I find something to eat today? Now that's a story that makes sense, because now Billy is putting up with this thing that's going badly because she's promised him his 5 years and she loves him enough to support that. That totally changed my understanding of every scene for these characters, because instead of being this static situation, they are now this couple who fell in love across an abyss, a gap of the differences of their visions of life. But they love each other so much that they are excited to spend time together despite or even because of their differences, but that they've got this story, this promise that is failing to keep them organized in the story. what I find fascinating is I have been working on this for decades. Why did I not see that they needed that the version of Charlie I had before, in which he was just this sort of saintly devotee of painting with no other concerns, including fame or wealth. That seemed very beautiful, but it was terrible for the story. Why didn't I see that? How could I have worked on, I don't know, 200 scenes? How could I have worked on the full story of this character's life and not recognized this incredible problem in his composition, in his makeup? So that's what I wanted to talk about for a minute, is just the idea of how much things that you assume are set or locked, or that when you look at them from a different angle, you suddenly see, oh, that doesn't hold up. It's like a picture of a character, but when you go around the other side to look at him from another character's point of view, he's flat. He's going to fall over, as opposed to a three-dimensional person who can stand on his own. And that to me, one of the best ways to get there is this idea of character outlines. So let me go back to this and show you again. So what I did was I duplicated the outline twice, and I made a new document that I called Character Outlines. And this Character Outlines thing is the entire outline, but only for this character. So any scene that they're not in, I wiped out. Then I went through it scene by scene, and I said to myself, what is she thinking? What is she feeling? And so, for instance, I realized, first of all, she's an elegant, well-brought-up young rich woman in the 1930s, which means she grew up in the 1920s, which was a very old-fashioned time in which well-brought-up people are not going to let their emotions out. So I made a note about that. These are things that will help just find those scenes. And the way that I did that is by going scene by scene and saying, well, when we meet her, she is at the breaking point of a plan that was made before the story begins. So I have to figure out what that plan is, and I have to figure out where to put it. And the answer is, I will explain their plans in the course of these scenes, and show that later on there's a flashback in which we talk about how they met and how they fell in love and how their relationship was built to the point that we meet them. All of that came into my head because I did an outline of just Billy's story, and that Billy fell in love with this guy, and he was so admirable in so many ways that she was willing to put up with a very unsatisfying, unequal relationship because he needed some space to accomplish his goals. So that's the value of a character outline. It raises questions that you don't see when you're only looking from one character's point of view. When you switch around to another character's point of view, all these questions come up. Okay. So let's do a couple of quick hellos. Hello, Doreen. Hello, UG. UGs. I'm also at about 140 pages of my first draft. I estimate there'll be 70 more. Glenn, how do you overcome the horror of editing 200 pages of rough draft, first draft? Okay, this is a great question. And I would say my answer is, for me, having it broken down into pieces so that I can say, all right, if I have to edit 200 pages, if I look at 200 pages, I'm overwhelmed. If I look at one page or one set of pages, one chapter, that chapter has a more specific goal than the 200 pages. The 200 pages is made of all sorts of twists and turns and pieces being put together. But if you just say, okay, I'm going to look at just this piece, and look at, well, what is the one thing that has to happen in this piece? Well, how is it being expressed? Well, how do I like the language of it? That is how I personally get through the horror of editing 200 pages. I also, have I finished this? Yes, I have a video about rewriting. Please take a look at it, because I talk a lot about having written something, about how you take on the very difficult job. I mean, when you wrote it, you did the best you could. And so the question is, how can you look at doing the best you can and sorting out, oh, that bit worked and this bit doesn't work. So you want to, first of all, look at what did work and say, okay, that is a clue to how I am going to do the rest. Whatever structural or stylistic or emotional or thematic thing is in the good bits, then you say, that tells me something about this project. It tells me about the voice, about the style, about the rhythm. Whatever it is, you got it right once or twice. And then you go through all the rest. You say, well, how can I work on that in this scheme that the good parts are doing? So that's one way that I personally work on the overwhelming task of just having to change. In my case, like of my 300 pages, at least 270 of them need drastic work. Once again, this video called Rewriting, I will put a link down in the description at the end of this episode. I will go in and add to the description a link to that. The other way that I do this, because the next thing I want to talk about is, so I've worked out these three outlines, right? I've got Tom's outline, which is the outline of the book. And then I've got Billy's and Charlie's outlines. Well, now I have three outlines. I can't work from three outlines. So what I just started to do the past 2 days is go through my outlines. And what I don't know if I can show you how I'm doing this, but basically I have to go through this scene in this version and then go into this same scene here. And I need to clean up the main outline, because my main outline, I used it to, like, anything I could think about of what happens, and this is what happens in a certain chapter. So now I have written a rough draft of this, which means I need to eventually cut all this out and just make this New York is too hard. Tom is starving. Breaks into an attic apartment and steals art. So now I just have like a little 2-line version of this. So the ones that are done will just be this. And then when I get to the ones that aren't done, I've got all these notes. What I have to do here is take the notes out of Charlie's and Billy's outline and put them into the main outline, and then rewrite the main outline. Before I can rewrite the text, I need to rewrite the main outline because it's got to be clean enough that I can look at it and know what I have to do. And these notes are all over the place. There are different thoughts and questions, and the answers may not be in a dramatic form. They may be in an intellectual form in which I'm dealing with the ideas, but they're not flowing in the way that the scene will flow. So the answer is, for me, the way I'm going to do this rewrite is, for each step of the way, I need to take all of the stuff I've discovered in these two outlines and put them into the main outline. so that I could throw away the other two. Everything will be in the main outline. Then I need to go through that and clean it up, make it into a version where it's in my head clearly. The other thing I'm going to do while I do that, and this is hard but helpful for me, each time I get to a scene in the outline, I'm going to check it against the rough draft. And what I'm going to discover, the reason I want to do that is I want to see how much of these thoughts are actually somewhere in the rough draft. If they're there, I take them out of the outline. The whole point of the outline, is it's a things to do list. It's a place to put all my thoughts of all the things I need to get in. And when they're in, I want to take them out of the outline so that all that's left in the outline is work to be done. So that's where I am at the moment on this plan. Let me do some other comments and questions. Hello, Thumper and Lake Filter. Hello, Michael. In the beginning of the 20th century, what immigrants did to pursue the elusive great American dream. Yes, that's certainly true of many of my characters. They are at the point of the 20th century when that great American dream seems like it might be a nightmare, because in the depths of the Depression, which is when this story starts, it seriously looked like America had failed. And people were questioning what to do with this failed America. Hello, Najo. Good to see you. Boxing our characters and minds into a set notion is so constrictive. Living with our characters within the story changes things for the better. Often, yes, Donna, thank you for seeing that, for agreeing with it. That's really my big point. My big point is I personally need a structural way to ask questions and look at things. If I can't break it down into steps of the story, in other words, when Tom meets Billy, she doesn't like him and she keeps him at a distance. So now I have to find the step where he finally breaks through her attention, her judgment of him. She judges him. And at a certain point, he is going to do and say things that are going to make her rethink that. So my point is I have to go through the outline and find exactly what those steps are. And there's so many of them in a novel. So that for me is how I organize the creative task, which Yuji asked about, which is I can't rewrite a whole book. I can't rewrite a novel. I can rewrite a page. I can rewrite a scene. I can't rewrite the whole thing, but I can rewrite it scene by scene. If I rewrite it scene by scene, by the time I'm done with my outline, I will have rewritten the whole book. That is all I know about it at this point. Hi, DG. Profound comments on not being able to afford the paint to be an artist. Yes, thank you. Plug. Don, I can just say Donna has been rewatching a lot of the videos on these playlists, and she's been commenting a lot, like, "Hey, rewatch this one. You know, I learned a good thing," which is really fun for me. Thank you for commenting. Anybody who watches my videos, if you comment, it helps me personally. It also helps YouTube know that people care enough to stop and say something. So just a note there. Hello, Lysanda. Revising and editing are my favorite parts of the process. I have to tell you, me too, because at least you have something to hold on to. You have like pieces that are good. I think one of the most important things to do when you're trying to revise something, especially something that's a disastrous mess like this is, my book currently is an unreadable, disastrous mess. However, I am actually happy about that, because what it means is I now have something to fix, something that I can find a little bit in each scene, something that's cool, something that's going to be the book that I want it to be. And so I have to spend my time saying, okay, how can I get out of the way of that good thing? How can I do more of that good bit? This is something I talk about in this rewriting video, and I want to emphasize. The way that you rewrite most productively is by focusing on the good things, not the bad things. You work from what's good. You work from looking at it and saying, in this thing, which is 99% garbage at the moment, that 1% is showing me the way. And you have to be willing to overly celebrate, not rest on your laurels, but you have to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I got 1% of it to work. Because if that 1% can work, then if you just fix it 1% at a time, you will get to 100% works. Yeah, thank you. That is the main thing that Yuji's saying, is how do you rewrite something, anything big, a feature film or even a short story. You're going to the short story, at least you can sort of get through it in a relatively quick amount of time. Hello, Tomorrow Kiddo. Very nice to meet you. Yes. Okay. Lysanda's absolutely right. Lysanda says, revising and editing are my favorite parts of the process. Now you have a puzzle to solve. And yes, that is exactly right. The way I look at this rewriting thing is I've got pieces now. I may not have the whole puzzle yet, but I've got one or two pieces. Like if I can just start, and sometimes you say, when you're working on a puzzle, if you can put two pieces together, or if you can start to get the edges of the puzzle or some area of it where you're like, oh, this distinctive color in your jigsaw puzzle means that these three pieces go together. When you start to think that way, then you're like, okay, well, now I need the green piece. And if the green piece doesn't exist, you have to make the green piece. But piece by piece, you will be able to fit it together if you start to think of it as a creation made of many pieces. And if you even have just one piece that works, you can build from there. So that is it. God, I hate rewriting. You masochists. The first draft is the fun bit, Adam says. And everyone is different. For me, the first draft is exciting, but it's also the most confusing. Because until I've got something down, it just every time I look at it, it just feels too big. Okay. Donna says, you've got it going on today. Thank you. I thought writing the phones first was best, but without moments of glitter too in the first draft, it's dull. Congratulations on the 300. Yes, thank you. Yeah, sometimes it's just a phrase. Like sometimes it'll just be like a rhythm, like a type of expression. You'll be like, oh, this is like a long descriptive sentence with lots of adjectives in it, and that feels right for this piece. Or another thing will be like a little snarky comment that's very short. Whatever it is, it will ring in your ear as like, that's the right language. That's the right attitude. That's the right rhythm. And then you can use that to check against. Everything can't be the same, but it is really useful to get something that works. Okay, David Legare, can you pitch a story by a one-page introduction that makes a tsunami of an introduction? I am not sure what you mean by that. Can you give me a little bit more of a definition of a tsunami of an introduction? I hate the phrase "writing is rewriting." Okay, yeah, that's cool. Adam says, I hate the phrase writing is rewriting. Yuck. I prefer rewriting is writing. And this is interesting because this is a very valid point. People tend to think of writing as this creating out of nothing onto the page. And then rewriting is somehow mechanically, grammatically fixing it. And that's not true. Rewriting is simply the next version of writing in which you're not making it up out of nowhere. You're making it up out of nowhere with some pieces laid in. let's put it this way. Imagine that you're building a house, and for some reason, you don't have a plan. So when you start building this house, when you get like the floors laid out, now you're not done, but it was really cool to get the floors figured out, right? So you've got those floors, and now you're like, okay, where are the windows going to go? Well, you have at least some idea, because the floor is in a certain place, of where the windows are going to go. And then you have to decide, and basically you have to do a phase of making up the windows. Where are they going to go? Where the light's going to come in? Where's the wind going to come in? Whatever it is, but you're going to do that within the context of the floors. Your windows are not going to be 12 meters off your floor. They're going to be there on the edge of the floor. So that's what I think of as writing and rewriting, is that it's all phases of writing. You're just doing it on the foundation that you started the last time. Do you have a video on starting or hooking a reader for a novel, or some best advice? Well, I don't have a video. I don't have any videos on novels except these live streams. But let's talk about hooking a reader. I will tell you a couple of things I do think about hooking a reader, and I do believe there's a Ask Me Anything I will check about hooking, about that beginning. The thing I will tell you about the hooky thing is that, first of all, it needs to establish one part of the center of the story. Let's look at Jaws, okay? Now, Jaws, the book and the movie start identically the same. And this is not a spoiler because it's the start. A bunch of teenagers on this island are out at the beach in the middle of the night. They've got bonfires, they're dancing, they're drinking, they're drugging, they're partying. And one of the girls goes swimming in the ocean at night. And a shark comes up and bites her in half. That's the opening of Jaws. Now, the point about this is that we're not meeting any of the main characters. We are meeting the setting. Okay, we are learning that this is a story going to be set on this island off Massachusetts. So the first thing I would say is you have to be getting something that you think is central to the story. This is a story of how an island has a shark circling it. So therefore, meet the island. The other thing that you meet in the story is the shark. Okay, you don't meet any of the characters. You just meet the problem. Okay, the threat, the thing that has to be overcome for us to survive this story. So that's all that happens at the opening of Jaws. And so the first thing I would say is you do not have to start with the problem. I was using that as an example. In other stories, they will start with an introduction of the main character, like Pip in Great Expectations. The beginning of Great Expectations starts with this guy explaining where he got his wacky name, which is Pip, which is what he used to say when he was a little kid, because his parents that his parents had died, and he's living with his older sister, and he's going out to the grave where the parents are. All of this is a way of introducing the main character. And so what I would say is, what you have to do is choose a thing to hook. You don't hook with everything. You hook with just a little piece. And you can decide what that piece is, and that can change. You can decide, I am going to hook people by telling them the big crisis that's going to happen, and then say 6 months earlier. Sure, that's one way. Another way is to say, I am meeting this character and he's got a great plan for his happiness, and then something happens to take that away. Whatever it is, you need to pick a thing that you feel, and it's just going to be feeling, that you feel is a great way in, and not to give too much. The whole point about a good hooky opening is that it gives you something, but raises a lot of questions. What are they going to do about the shark on this island? Okay, there you go. What's going to happen to Pip when he's out in the marshes and he meets an escaped convict? Any story starts with one very distinctive feeling and action and character. In the case of Jaws, the character is the shark. But in each, I believe in almost any hooky opening, you're choosing something. Now that could be introducing the country that they're in. You can say like, this is a country of many revolutions, and now we're going to talk about the people living in this revolution. And whatever it is, you choose one thing to hook with, and you make that hook strong emotionally and intellectually. You make the idea clear. Okay, innocent island, very scary shark. Young boy, escaped convict. He's making demands on this young boy. He's saying, go get me a file and some bread. Okay, so there you go. The point is, I believe that the way that you get a good hook is to not put everything in, just to put one strong thing in, and then you can build from there. Okay. All right. Yuji says, as a perfectionist, I died a little when hearing I may not have all the jigsaw puzzle pieces. Just kidding. No, it's true. I am 66 years old, okay? And I have been seriously writing like every day, thinking I'm going to be a professional writer when I was like 15. So we're talking about 50 years in which I thought I knew what I was doing. And yet, this past week, I discovered, and I felt good about it because it was cool to discover it even now, that part of the process is accepting that you get pieces as you go along, and that the more that you go around and around, once again, let me see if I can, here we go. This is it. If you think of yourself as starting at this, there we go, at this point on the outermost part of the circle, and then you come around and you tell, I'm having a hard time doing this with the picture. You go around, like you do one draft, then you go around a second time and you do the other draft. Each time you do it, you're coming a little closer in, but you can only get closer in by going around. So the number of times you go around and improve it a little means you're zeroing in on that center, the best version. That's my procedural way to face the horror of uncertainty, which is being creative. Yes, I know that feeling. I know. Michael said, my dreams are fragmented, but by the time I wake, I try to make it into a coherent story. Yes, I believe that essentially that is the writing process. Okay. Norma, hi Norma, nice to meet you, says, rewriting the work from yesterday is my warm-up to write the next scene. I know several people who work that way. Famous writers often have said the way that they get into it is they go back a couple pages and they start to work on it and correct it and improve it. And when they do that, they're working with that foundation, with the floor plan in. And so then they can get more creative. And then by the time they get to there, they can sort of have enough momentum and focus to put a new part of the floor plan in, the undiscovered part. Okay. Wakar says, hi, Glenn. I'm stuck on my plot for a long time and can't seem to move forward despite having a clear conflict and idea. What should I do? Should I switch my focus to sketching the characters? This is an excellent and interesting question. My answer with this always is, if you are stuck, change. Do something different. Sure, sketching the characters might be good. Maybe you need to write some rough draft. Maybe you need to do character outlines like I've been talking about. Or once again, I urge you to look at this video, 6 Essential Questions. I talk about, like, for me, if I'm stuck, I ask these questions because usually there's some piece of them that you haven't answered if you're stuck. The other thing I would say is this process of questions and this video, use what you have. Okay, so those 3 videos, 6 Essential Questions, a process of questions, and use what you have. I will put the links to those videos in the description about 10 minutes after I'm done doing this live stream. So you can look and find them there, but please go to my channel, look at those videos. They talk exactly about this problem of being stuck and like, what do you do? These are some ideas. Also, I do believe, yes, getting stuck or lost. I did a whole video on this. So I urge you to look at those, because I really do believe that there isn't a single right answer. Every time you get stuck, you're stuck in a different way, a different place. And so therefore, you need a different thing to fix it. Okay. David's going to explain his earlier questions. 1-page idea story to pitch a unique idea never thought of before. Can writer hook a buyer? Okay, so we got a couple questions involved here. The first one is, can you hook a buyer? And the answer is usually not. At this point in the artistic fields, there are so many people coming up to buyers, as you look at them, who are really actually producers or distributors. That's their job. They're not interested in buying. They're interested in selling, and they need to pay you something to get the thing that they're going to sell. So it's really important to remember, they're not the buyer. They're not the audience. They are, in fact, a producer or a distributor. And the answer is, they have so many things coming at them that they can afford to say, I want to see that in a more finished form. Even from highly skilled or writers with big reputations, very often cannot sell a pitch anymore, a concept. It's very, very difficult. But certainly if you are not an established writer, if you do not have an agent, and if you do not have credits for work that you have done that has been professionally successful already, no one is likely to buy your work to distribute based on a proposal. They need to see that you can do it. So therefore, the answer is, can you hook a buyer? No. It's not impossible, but the odds are against it. But I want to also mention this other thing, a 1-page idea of a unique idea never thought of before. I am going to go out on a limb and say I believe that unique ideas that no one has ever thought of before are very, very, very rare. We don't need new ideas that no one's ever thought about before. We need really good versions of ideas. Doesn't matter if they're new or old. We need to know that you can do a good job with an idea. Let's put it this way. There's a movie out right now, saw it last night, called Challengers. Challengers is a story about 3 athletes, 3 tennis players in a love triangle. There's 2 guys and a woman, and they are all excellent tennis players, and there is absolutely nothing new about a love triangle. There's not even anything new about a love story set in the world of sports. That's not what's new. What's new about Challengers, and it's really good. Challengers is terrific. What's good about it is the approach that the filmmakers and the writer take to a completely unoriginal concept. Okay? The idea of a love triangle set among professional athletes is not something that somebody's going to go, whoa, That's such a great idea. I don't even care if it's done well. I'm buying that idea. Because that's what you're talking about. We're talking about the idea that somebody's going to buy an idea, not the artistic product of that idea, but just simply the concept. That is not a thing that really happens very much anymore. It honestly didn't happen that much in the 1980s and 90s when it was a thing. Okay, so the answer is I do not believe that you can hook a buyer with a one-page. You can hook them to say, I'd like to see that script. Absolutely. Can you hook them to pay for the script? Unlikely. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I try to be. Hi, Hasko, not the pirate. I love you lurking. I love all of my lurkers out there. I wish you well. You are welcome to lurk. Okay. What I like about the spiral, each line makes contact with the past and future lines. Yes, exactly. The spiral, it doesn't actually make contact. Well, it does make contact with it. They're flowing from one original source. Okay. Hi, Glenn's Fan Club, which is just very unnerving to me, but thank you. I saw a video in Film Courage. One of the guests said, rewrite for amateur. Professionals outline vigorously and avoid wasting time with the rewrite. I found that interview ridiculous. Yes. Okay. So basically, this person in this video in Film Courage said, amateurs rewrite. If you do it really well, you just do a great outline and you write your first draft and it's done. Yeah, absolutely. It could be for this person in their method, they happen to be able to do that. Honestly, it just sounds like someone posing, someone posturing in order to get attention. But I don't know them. I can't say. I didn't see the video. But I do believe that many people now spend their time teaching by trying to find some hooky new way to say things or some bold, aggressive attitude. It just seems like bullshit to me. It's just like, but once again, everybody, you never know. It's an interesting, you can find something in any teacher's work that might be worth listening to. That personally, I agree, sounds ridiculous. Okay. Sometimes we're in the logical mindset of outlining the bones of things first. Sometimes maybe we want to illustrate an idea or a feeling we felt, in which case we get right into things. Both work. This is correct, Alex. Alex, you are correct. Like I'm defining right or wrong. I'm just saying Alex is onto something here. Alex is saying sometimes when you're working, you're thinking in a sort of intellectual or structural way, and sometimes you're thinking in an emotional or textural way. Either one is fine. Whichever one you're working on, later you're going to have to do the other one. If you work on all the structure and get it perfect, later, sometime, you're going to have to give it some flesh, some texture, some style. If you've got this great style and texture, but you don't really know what to do with it, you write that for a while, excuse me, and then you suddenly say, oh, I need to make this into a story, and you'll do that step then. It does not matter when you do each step. Eventually, you have to do them all. Hello, Germany football rocks. I recently got an offer to work in a film company in the marketing department, but I want to be a screenwriter. Do you think that position would help? Okay. It will help in the sense that you will get to know other people in the business and you'll get to see a little bit about how the business works. The question is, does working in the business of an art you want to do help you to be a better artist? And the answer is yes, a little bit. You will still need to carve out your own creative time and space, having nothing that the business doesn't care about. In some ways, working for the business can damage your artwork because you can start to think too much in the business-like way, and maybe that will repress or take some of the momentum out of your creative ideas because you're thinking as a judge, not as a creator. Everybody's different. Some people will flourish from what they learn from that. I personally found it often intimidating. It will help in that you want to pay your rent. So yes, that if you need a job to pay your rent, that could be a good job. It depends on how demanding it is. You don't want a day job that takes up so much intense time that you never have time to write. As far as will it help you as a screenwriter, yes, in this one way. You will be able to go to the other departments in theory and say, hey, would somebody read my script? And that will get you that little bit of the door being open that somebody else wouldn't have. Other than that, and also they might have a policy, no, I don't want to, you still has to come through an agent. Who knows? But it is not impossible that as you work in a film company, you will meet people who will read scripts, and that is valuable. Okay. Yes, honesty is my only my only product. The new is combining some classic themes in an unusual and exciting way. Sometimes, yes, sometimes it's not a classic theme. Although I mean, you can always interpret anything new in terms of an earlier predecessor. Sometimes the new is a new version of an old thing. Sometimes it's genuinely new. Like at some point, somebody said, I'm going to write a story in prose. Nobody had ever done that. In fact, it like builds up over time. But the answer is, yeah. Somebody said, I'm going to tell this story out of time order for the first time. But those are very, very rare. If you want to be original, don't watch too many how-tos. That is true. If you want to be original, look into the things that you love that excite you, the things you hate that you don't want to do, and then do the thing that you would like to see. That's your best chance at being original. And you are welcome. Good morning to you in Indonesia. I hope you have a good day. I hope everybody has a good day and a good week, because we're at the end of the hour and I'm going to say so long. So I'll see you next week. Oh, sorry. Stefan's got one last question. Do you have any advice where screenwriters should study the structure of a screenplay? I would say two things. One, please do watch these videos. I talk a lot about how to approach structure in them without saying there is a particular structure. I believe there is no one way to structure. I would say that as it happens, there is a book that I read that's an old book, but I do kind of like it. Let me see if I can find the, yeah, here it is. Sid Field wrote a book called Screenplay, which I very much like. I think it's a good book. Okay. But the other thing I would say is, as far as structure goes, you want to look at the structures you like. So I'm going to recommend this video, Take Art Apart. In a few minutes, I will have the link to it down in the description below this video. Like if you scroll down, you'll see in the description, there will be links to all the videos I've mentioned. Stefan, I would say that there are so many different possible structures. You absolutely can, there's hundreds of videos and books where they talk about the 3-act structure. I think that is okay. I would say the main thing you want to do is look at the work you like best and try to analyze, like make an outline of the things you think are well structured, things that seem like good stories. See how they work. That's my best example. Okay. Yes, back to outlining for Adam. Okay. John, I hope I am doing great. I want to ask, how can I learn how to plot from screenplays? And about outline, how can I be more specific with my points to make my audience understand exactly how I think? Cool, Norma, thank you. John, I would say there are first of all, please look at the, once again, everything that I have to say about all of these topics is in these videos. The first 3 playlists, there's 50 videos, 50, and they are 10 minutes each. So they're very, very watchable. Please watch those. That's where I answer them. However, as far as outlines go, there are 2 really, really good ones that I did: why outline and how to outline. Please look at those. They will talk about the specifics on how I believe an outline works. Once again, I beg all of you, please, please check out these videos. 10 minutes. You'll never know what you'll get by watching those 10-minute videos now and then. Otherwise, anything that I talked about that has a video, I will put the description in the link below. And with that, I say, go write something.